if you have an opportunity, you have an interest, and you have a commitment, you're going to be successful. And then if you want to go further, the next progression of that is obsession.
Welcome to the Builder Hacks Podcast, your go-to destination for cutting-edge strategies, time-tested systems, and invaluable insights to revolutionize your construction business and elevate your life. Join your hosts, Nate Piper and Keith Meals, seasoned contractors who are not just in the trenches, but are also pioneering the future of the industry through Concord University. In each episode, we dive deep into the minds of the industry's most accomplished building professionals, uncovering their secrets to success and sharing actionable tips to help you thrive. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, our goal is to empower you to build a brighter future for yourself and for America. Tune in, level up, and let's build a better tomorrow together. This is the Builder Hacks Podcast. Build your future, building America. And this week, we're actually going to dive into something that we get asked all the time. And I actually had someone ask me about it before, is how to get started. So what do you do to get started in this industry? And I think it's a great question. So, and I know lots of people have it. I've gotten it multiple times, including we did a little story later on, Nate. So about one of the guys who used to work for me and got started doing his own thing. So that's what it comes down to. But I mean, let's jump into that. You know, if someone comes to you and they say, Nate, I want to get into this industry. I want to start my own business in this industry. What's your recommendation for them?
Well, my first thing when I talk to them about it is I try to gauge what is their level of interest, right? Because when we start talking about level of interest, there's three different levels, right? There's I'm interested, but I'm not committed. I'm committed, but I'm not interested. And then you have the rare find, which is I'm interested, I'm committed, and I'm obsessed, right? Now, those are the ones that I really love to be around, but they don't all come that way. So I always try to gauge what is their interest level. Is this going to be a hobby, or is this something that they want to build upon? Right.
Right. Well, so whenever you say that, and I think we kind of need to define that for the people listening, Nate. Sure. So what's the difference between interested, committed, and obsessed? So what does that mean?
Yeah. So interested is like, I'm dabbling. It's my curiosity. I need to try something.
Kind of tasting the buffet, maybe.
Yeah, let me stick my toe in the water and see if it's hot or cold, and that's interested. Committed is like, if we take the pool analogy, it's like, okay, I see water. I don't know if it's cold or not, but I'm going to run and jump into the pool and not just test it, right? And then they're committed and they make a decision that they're going to be a part of that. And so, now you could be committed and not have any clue of what's going on or what you should or should not do, and be committed to that whole piece. But you need to find out what you're interested in. And I think being interested is a great way to start, because then you get to taste it. And it's kind of like what we've talked about over the last few episodes or over the last season, is just getting in, getting your feet wet and seeing if you like it or if you don't like it. And then seeing like, okay, how can I take the past skills and turn them into new skills? And I think that's the place to start. And if you're interested and you like it, then you move over into committed. And that's the path that you should take versus, oh, let me just dive in anywhere and just be committed for a season.
So whenever you go from committed is a higher level of desire for whatever that industry is. You're looking to do more. So you're willing to put in more of the work. So go through the ups and the downs that come with any business, especially a new business getting started up. So is that kind of what that means?
Yeah. I mean, it becomes one of those things like, prime example, hired a new guy last week. He was already interested. He already knew that he wanted to be in the construction industry. He wants to be a project manager. He's taken some classes. He's been a part of some things. And so he's already hit the interested phase. And now he's like, okay, I know that this is where I want to be. Now I start putting the commitments in there, right? Can you be here at 8 o'clock in the morning? Can you stay till late? Can you answer the phone call? Can you do the things that you need to do that's where the commitment comes into, right?
Okay.
So the interested piece is like, okay, yeah, I'd want to dabble, but the commitment portion is where you turn from this is now going from a hobby into a career or
Okay.
into a
Perfect.
job or where it goes to. And then you have to have both of those.
Hmm.
And hopefully then you transition over into obsessed. Like I'm
Okay.
obsessed, Keith's obsessed, we're obsessed with this industry, we're obsessed with this our community, we're obsessed with our families, we're
Right.
obsessed completely where we think about it all the time. Day, night. I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm writing down notes. I'm
Uh-huh.
obsessed. And that's where you ultimately want to be, no matter what your career is or what you're
Right.
doing in life. You want to get to a point where you're obsessed with something. I'm going to
That
share a little story about Keith while we were talking last week. Keith's so obsessed he went on vacation and he was still working on his vacation, right? That's obsessed. That's what we do.
and when I say one of the big things I look at whenever it comes down to the obsessed part, so you can tell you're obsessed when people think you're crazy for doing what you do.
Yeah.
And using Nate's example, my family, whenever I go on vacation, has the hardest time. My mom worked for companies all over her life, so did a great job, exceeded or excelled in all those. So got up into high executive levels at the last company that she was at. My brother does very well, so he works for a municipality. He actually runs multiple water treatment plants, so multiple different municipalities' water treatment plants. So and takes care of all that for them. Excellent employee. So he's definitely at the committed piece. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. My mom was at the committed piece, so they would do the extra steps to go ahead and get better at the job that they were in, the position they're in. So I'm obsessed because of the fact that people look at me like, you don't shut off. So you really, I mean, like you're all that, like I'll talk business at any time, at any point. Someone brings it, I may be ready to fall asleep and someone starts talking business. I like perk back up. So it's an
Yeah.
immediate piece. So, cause that's the piece for me that excites me. And that's it. Whenever I'm on vacation, they're like, why aren't you able to step away? You need to be able to relax. And I'm like, you don't realize what if you're asking me to step away, you're
Yeah.
actually doing me more harm. So
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to. You're causing me to step away from something I love to do, which means you're actually putting me in pain. And I don't like to be put in pain. So unless, of course, I'm working out, then that's part of the process. So,
Well, I think that's what happens to all of us, or it should happen to all of us, is that we get
right.
to a point where, at least as business owners, right? If you want to
Mm-hmm.
be a business owner, you have to get to the point of being obsessed with your business and your industry and what you're doing and your
Mm-hmm.
employees and you're just obsessed with it. And then, but the layer before that is commitment. And without
Mm-hmm.
commitment, you can't have obsessive. You can't be
Right.
obsessive. And I'm definitely obsessive with my business. My wife tells me all the time, like, can you turn that off? I'm like, no, I can't. I have no control over it. It's just in me. It's always in me. Um, and so,
And Nate's always looking at the next opportunity. So he said, whenever I first met Nate, so this is a couple years ago now. So we were at a mastermind meeting together, and one of the things that he was talking about is he's like, I've gone ahead and I've stopped opening up new businesses because I got so many of them. And then the next thing I hear, the next mastermind, I'm like, hey, I've got another business opening, and then let's go ahead and do Concord University, and I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, that lasted all of 6 months.
yeah, I think 6 months is a little, I don't even know if it made it 6 months.
Yeah, I don't think you made it 6 months. That's just whenever I heard about it again.
Yeah, but that's part of it, right? It's like we get to these things where we're obsessed with them, we think about them, we do them, we implement, and those are the things that kind of carry on. So to bring it all the way back full circle, when I have somebody young that's coming in, my first question is, what are you interested in? Where do you see your life? Like, what do you see that's going on? Like, and I gauge and I judge like, are you interested in animals? Are you interested in plants? Are you interested in construction? Are you interested in architecture? Are you interested in art? Are you interested in sports? Like what are your interests? And
Mhm.
then I start to gauge like, okay, what are you obsessed about from your interest? And then how do I create an opportunity for you to come into my world, my sphere?
Right.
But it always starts off with interest.
And I think that's a key piece, especially and realize this a lot of times whenever you're first getting started out, if you're younger, so you may only know just some things you're interested in. You may not have found something that you're obsessed with yet. So you may not have made it to that level. And
No,
there's nothing
most
wrong
people
with that.
won't. Most
Yeah.
people
And that's,
won't.
I mean, I know I didn't, it's funny because whenever I used to work for others in construction, I would say I was committed. So because I've been committed, any position I take or anything I do, I'm at least committed to, or I won't do it. Or I'll, if I start out, I'm like, I'm not committed. I'm like, I'm done. There's no sense putting any more time here. That was what it comes down to. So I was always committed with everything that I did. I didn't have an obsession. So with the construction industry until I opened my own business. And whenever I opened that, it was the funny thing. It's like before it'd be like I would do what I felt I had to do, and I would still go above and beyond. But whenever it came down to it, I didn't find that love until it was mine and it was being run my way, which was part of the challenge before, because I would see things. I'm like, there's a different way to
Yeah.
do this that gets a better result. And once I got the chance to do that on my own, or took that chance to do that on my own, that's whenever I became obsessed with it, because now it's the constantly improving the process, constantly improving what we do, getting better results for our homeowners. So affecting more people, which is what Concord is about, and about the Builder Hacks podcast. That's what all of those are about, is going ahead and helping more and more people be able to find that same thing.
That's it. I'm even starting to transition that over into our company, and um, instead of creating employees, but creating partnerships, right? Where we're getting into that point. But that's the path that you want to go down. I have a huge disagreement with authority, and always have, and I still remember my middle school principal and him and I having debates on things and conversations. And so I like you, it's like I could only be in a place where I was creating uh my end result, what I believed, but I needed a space that would allow me to do that. And it was so
Right.
hard to find that space. But there's a lot of kids out there, and I say kids, young men, young women,
Mm-hmm.
who are coming in and they have no idea, what their interests are or what they should be
Right.
doing or where to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get stuck into this pattern of, you know, can't do this, don't want to do that, don't know where to go, and they're just frozen, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
procrastination more than anything else. I think that's probably one of the things that's hurting the youth of today. So if
Mm-hmm.
someone feels like that, just know that you're not alone, but you do need to find something that you're interested in, because you got to pay bills, you got to get excited
Mm-hmm.
about things, and you need to find a career that excites you, and that's what
Well,
comes from interest.
and part of the big part of that is, and you'll see this, and this is one of the things I want anyone out there that's listening. Nate already touched on it. Lots of people get into jobs and even into careers. So they've got no passion and no love for, and it's literally what they do. And it's then a lot of times by the time they get further down the road, they've got what we call the golden handcuffs on, where they're making too much money and have too many responsibilities to be able to step away because they have to take care of that. So you get a wife, you get a husband, so you get kids. So whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden you look up and it's like 20 years later. So in your life, and now you're able to start. Now you're like, I missed out on 20 years of my life. And that's the scary part. And
Yeah,
so often during that time, people may have made a change. It's the fear that holds them from moving forward. And I mean, one of the biggest things, like with Alice and I, and I'm sure you've had the same thing with Heather, though, is that conversation around, this is what I do. This is how I'm going to do it. I need you to be on board with what's going on with this. I don't necessarily, I mean, Alice is in my business now. In the beginning, she wasn't. I just
yeah.
needed her to be able to support what I was doing and be okay with and understand why I was doing what I was doing
Or
and
at bare
understand what it was
minimum,
going to
don't
create.
shoot holes in my boat.
Yeah. So, and it
That's
is,
where we live most of the time.
yep. And it's the key is you've got to have those conversations, the
Yeah.
communication. I mean, the communication, when you get good at communication, you do it everywhere. Your relationships, whether they're your personal relationships, whether they're with your friends, whether it's with the business associates and things that you've got, the people that work on your team. Well, all that communication goes back to all of those pieces, but realize getting that support behind you and taking the opportunity. That's why when you're young and you don't have as many responsibilities right now, that's the chance to hit as many interests as you possibly can
Yeah.
and really get into finding out whether there's something there. And look at, like, whenever I think interest, whenever Nate's talking about that, and like he started asking some questions, what do you like? What have you done before? What have you found a spark before? And it's like one of the questions that I think of all the time. So if you had a topic, if someone asked you to talk about whatever you wanted to talk about, what would be the first thing that came to your mind that you're going to go ahead and
Yeah.
talk about?
Yeah. That's
Because
it.
that's usually something for most people that they've got some sort of passion about. So on something that they've probably put a little bit more time into already. Oh, and that's
Well,
at least something to start looking at, or at
if
least
you
the
ask
pieces that are a part of that to look at what that is.
if you ask my 8-year-old son, he'll say Fortnite.
Well,
But that's
which is
where,
good.
but that's where he's at, you know.
But
He
and for
goes,
Fortnite, what is it about Fortnite that he loves?
he loves actually creating the characters. I thought it was shooting the people, but it's not. He likes creating the
That'd be your
characters.
part, Nate. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
He likes creating the characters and giving these
Right.
whatever these things called skins or whatever.
I have
And
no idea.
yeah, and so but that's what he likes. You know,
Mhm.
he's he's interested in football that we have him in football practice, right?
Mhm.
And he's interested in playing the games, but he
Right.
doesn't really care if he gets on the field or if he doesn't get on the field. So I
Right.
would say that he's interested, but he's not committed. But
Correct.
the moment that he's off the football field, he's committed to getting on to his gaming system
Okay.
and playing his game
Mhm.
and going through and creating these things. That's what he's committed to. And if
Right.
I was to talk to him, or as he talks to me, he basically talks to me about the books that he's read, the food that he likes,
Mhm.
and his Fortnite skins that he's constantly changing. He doesn't even care about if he wins or loses or shoots anybody. He's just like, I just run around the game and hide. And I'm like, okay, fine. That's what outlasts other people. And but I think that's what we're talking about, you know.
Right.
And you know,
And that piece, right? Actually, that part right there, where you say we outlast everybody. It's literally the hallmark of successful entrepreneurs. Is
yeah,
there's so many times where we get involved in a business and other people will be involved in doing a competing business, and the only reason you succeed is because you won't stop.
that's
So
it.
you're committed. You'll outlast them. You'll stick with it. The discipline is there. You keep showing up every day when you're getting kicked in the teeth, whether you're getting patted on the back. So either way, you keep showing up, and it doesn't matter.
He's definitely
And
going to be my entrepreneur. I can already tell, you know. And
well, and that creative side like that, that's like whenever I
yeah,
hear that piece, that's the thing that I look at. It's like, all right, well, what can we do with this creative side? What can you create? You know, do you want to
yeah,
get into something in construction, being an architect? So being a designer in this industry, you know, do you want to
that's
go
it.
ahead and actually do something different? Are you an artist? Do you want to go ahead and do something as far as art goes? Do you want to get in digital marketing and do things on the digital marketing side of things and being the creative person there? There's so many different opportunities that are out there
Well,
to be able to flex that muscle.
that's why I love asking people what their interests are,
Yeah.
you know, because if they don't have any, if they tell me that they don't have any, do you know what that means? That's where you go to the bottom of you go to the
Hmm.
bottom of the chain and
Right.
you stay there until you figure out what your interest is.
Hmm.
If you come in and you say, hey, in an interviewing process and you say, you know what, my interest really is in like marketing and
Hmm.
graphic design and communications, right? Then I'm going to try to figure out something for you to do
Right.
in our marketing department and help you guide through that. But knowing that like that's the destination, then I can start you back off in the field and work you towards that to give you all the information that you're going to need in the
Right.
marketing department. I can start you off
Yeah.
in the field knowing
You
that
get to
that's the
see it,
journey that I'm taking you
get
on.
to talk to, you get to be around when the customers are being talked to and things like that. Find out the things that
Exactly.
are important to them in the conversations. That way, you
Learning the
know.
language,
Hmm.
learning what is and what isn't, you know,
Right.
and it's just a different perspective.
And it definitely is. So, and it's want to, I do want to get back into the piece. All right. So if someone came in and they're interested in something and they feel like they're committed, or at least they're say they're committed at this point.
But
So for
that's what we
starting a new
test.
business.
That's what we test.
Yeah.
You got to
So well,
find,
let's say they're wanting to start a new business as opposed to work for
yeah,
us.
yeah,
So so they say they're committed. Maybe they've even shown they're committed to something to this point already.
yeah. What are they
What?
interested in, right? And
Hmm.
this comes through where they say, I'm interested in being, you know, having my own painting business. I'm
Hmm.
interested in, you know, I had a guy about a month ago. He came to me and he asked me a question, and his question was, "Hey, I'm thinking about going into the grill cleaning business." And I
Hmm.
said, "What do you mean by grill cleaning?" And he says, "You know, everybody at home has got a grill, you know, in their
Hmm.
backyard or somewhere close, but who cleans them?" And I was like, "Well,
Hmm.
that's a great point."
Yeah.
Anyways, he had heard somewhere on some TikTok that there was a
Hmm.
business market for this.
There's.
And I said, yeah, there absolutely is.
Hmm.
And I said, he was like, well, what do you think about it? I said, I think it's an excellent opportunity for someone to get in with minimal dollars.
Hmm.
Uh,
Not a whole lot of
not a
training. You don't
whole,
have to have a whole lot of experience,
yeah,
right?
not a whole lot of skill that you have to
Hmm.
have. You do a YouTube video for 10 minutes
Hmm.
and you figure out how to clean it. And then you go forward and you
Right.
start marketing and talking and doing the thing. But I
Hmm.
said, if you run the business numbers on it, right? You take one city
Hmm.
and town around here probably is around 75,000 people. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
you take this one town and you go, there's 75,000 people. You can guarantee half of the people that are in that population have a grill, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got 35,000 people. You
Right.
could take, a portion of that never clean their grills ever, right? So you start getting your
And don't
market
care.
side now
Yeah.
and don't care
Mhm.
to, right?
Right.
But then that's where you start with your market share. But if you
Mm-hmm.
have an interest for it, great. Now what's your next step? How committed are you? Are you going to buy the cleaning supplies? Are you going to make the flyers? Are you going to
Mm-hmm.
knock on the door? Are you going to go forward? That's where the commitment is. Great, you have interest. Thank you for
Right.
coming to me and asking me if this is a market that you should be in, because
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you yes or no. And in this case, yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Right.
Now here comes the commitment part. Are you willing to do the work? Are you
Mm-hmm.
hungry enough? And I'll tell you a story about when I was in high school. I was getting recruited to go into college and talking with a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of D1 schools and things. And afterwards, when I got a little bit older, I talked to these guys that are recruiters and scouts. And I
Mm-hmm.
asked them, I said, how are you guys, how do you guys choose which athletes go where, right? I mean, you can have some really good
Right.
athletes that never make it to D1,
Mm-hmm.
and you can have some mediocre athletes that shouldn't go, they should go to JUCO or they shouldn't even
Mm-hmm.
be playing, but then they go D1. So how do
Right.
you judge this? What is that? Because you have an abundance amount of kids playing sports.
Right.
How do you judge which ones go to D1, which ones don't? And the guy told me, he says, I really look to see who's hungry. And I
Mm-hmm.
look to see who's got the passion. And if they're hungry, then they're going to go and they're going to do the extra. They're going to make it happen.
Yep.
If they're just, if they're just fed, then they're not going to go the extra step. They're not going to go,
Mm-hmm.
to the extra practice. They're not going to get up early and make the thing. They're not going to make the extra
Right.
step, right? Because they're not hungry, because they have too much food in their pantry,
Mm-hmm.
and their pantry is their soul, right? They've got
Right.
too much they're comfortable with. They don't have the drive to go full. They don't have that extra gear. They don't have that um, obsession to be great. They're good
Mm-hmm.
with where they're at.
They a lot of those are, when you look at that athletic side of things, those are the people who have really good skills.
Mm-hmm.
So, and unfortunately, they've relied on the talent, the natural talent that they have, a lot more than they, in like a lot of cases, and a lot more than the effort that they put in to develop the talent that they were given.
Yeah. So then what we come back to is like, okay, if you have an opportunity, you have an interest, and you
Mm-hmm.
have a commitment, you're going to be successful. And then if you want to go further, the next progression of that is obsession.
Yeah.
But I think it takes a while to get there.
And like you were bringing up, Nate, and I think it's a good place for people to start is some of the service businesses, and especially like you were like the example you gave, Nate, was for a grill cleaning company. So that they had brought you that idea, and I had Mason, who's one of the guys who used to work with me, used to be my driver. So to give me time to be able to do things while we were going job site to job site, well, he came to me and he said that he and a friend had started up a gutter cleaning company. And they'd already
Yeah.
done a couple of jobs, and they got their jobs from going and doing the door-to-door thing. So they just walked around the neighborhood, knocked on doors. So I went ahead and offered up the service, and a couple of people said yes, and then they created a price right there. And that to me was one of the biggest things, because that piece we were talking about, the commitment piece.
Yeah.
So was they're willing to actually go out and do the door-to-door sales type of thing, and especially on service businesses, going out and putting out flyers and knocking on doors. So doing that type of thing is definitely a commitment thing. And you've
Absolutely.
got it. It's like it's for the people who work out and who show up and work out every day. So that's what you get, is you get the discipline. It's not the fact that you really love it, because I know I work out every day. I don't love it. Most days I don't want to be there doing it. That is what it comes down to. It's the discipline that this is what I'm doing. This is what I said I'm going to do. So I go ahead and make that happen. And I also know what the end result is for me and what I'm looking to go ahead and create with that, which all paints into that picture. Well, to go out and do those things like that, to have the discipline to go out and do door knocking like that, to have the discipline to go out and drop flyers all the time. So that's a key piece. And this is one of the big things I look at, whether that business succeeds or whether this business doesn't go where they want it to go and they do some changes. Either way, you learned a ton of skills you'll be able to take everywhere. I mean, think how many
Yeah.
people are afraid to go ahead and talk to a stranger, even,
Yeah.
let alone go up to their door, knock on their door, disturb them while they're doing whatever they're doing, and then look to go ahead and get them on your side to engage them in a service that you want to offer and show them how that's going to benefit them and why they want you to do that for them. That's a skill is what it comes down to. And the way you get the obsessed part of that is when you start getting the training. You go after you start looking at people who do door-to-door sales. You start looking at sales trainings and going through that so you can get just a little bit better every time. So you come to somebody who's a mentor with, hey, these are the challenges. This is the rejections I'm getting. What do I do to go ahead and overcome this objection that I seem to be getting all the time? And those are the types of things where you know you're starting to get obsessed. So with it, with the industry, and at least what you're in right now. So, and that's a good place to be.
Yeah, I always still the rewards as my dollar bills in my pocket. Those are my
for most people when they
rewards,
start out, that's usually what that is for sure.
Yeah, I mean, because then that's what gave me the motivation to do the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. And but I think that's the right motivation, you know. Somebody told me recently, and I agree with them, is that I've cleared out too much forest, and I have not allowed others to knock down their own trees. I thought I was doing the right thing by like clearing out a pathway and be like, make it all easy, or y'all run up here to the front, you know. And he told me, he's like, you know, you've actually done them a disservice by cutting down the tree for them, right? And you think that they're getting something out of watching you cut down the tree. And I was like, well, yeah, they're seeing the technique, they're showing me how to do the thing and how to bring in the capital and how to do the thing, you know. And he was like, well, but they never did it. And I was like,
right.
Oh, that's a good point. You know.
So, and when it comes down to that, the thing you have to always realize is there's different types of learning for people. Some people are really good with the book. I read it, I absorb it that way, and I'm able to implement whatever I read. And then the ones Nate's talking about, and this is a lot more people, they learn it by doing it. And you've got to give them that opportunity to do it, which means that they're going to stumble along the way. You know, when you start, like you said, using the exercising piece, when you start exercising, it's hard. So it's because your body's not used to doing whatever you're having it do. You may be using muscles you haven't used in a long, long time. You have to get your balance. You have to get the technique. All those little pieces are all part of the puzzle that you put together. The more that you do it, that you get good at it, and then it actually gets some of the results that you're looking for. And you're going to have to go ahead and work your way through that. It's the same way with business. You've got to go ahead and work your way through it. Having that person that, like, instead of being the trailblazer, like Nate says, he's out there clearing the forest for everybody. So hanging back and letting them go ahead and do that when they have the challenges, coming back to him and him being able to run through what he would do in that situation is huge. And it's one of the reasons why we're starting up Concourse, because of the fact that we want to be that for the people who are coming into the industry. Is that resource to come back to, because everybody wants to think that even if they have all the knowledge in the world, they can skip all these steps. There's a certain number of steps that you get to go through that are painful, and you're going to have to just do them. So because you may learn them, you may hear about them. Unfortunately, don't realize you did it until you've done it, and you look up and you're like, that's what they were talking about.
Every time.
Yep. But those are the things
2020.
Every time hindsight's 2020. Exactly. Well, that's and Mason did something really good whenever he got started in the business. After they did that, he reached out, and I'm like, hey, if you guys want to come over and talk about it, so we can talk about some of the next steps for you and things like that. And you know, I'll look at what you guys are doing on the marketing side, because at that point I didn't know what he had done and things. And he and his partner came over, and we ran through a whole bunch of stuff, and you know, in about an hour. So I gave him a lot of the starting things on the business side of things that he needs to go ahead and take care of. I told him you need to hold money back for, you know, to take care of your taxes, because that's going to come no matter what. You need to, at this point, you need to go ahead and create an entity, because there's two of you that are involved in this business. So you need to do something. And I explained the pros and the cons of which entities they may want to look at doing. I told him about insurance. I said, you guys are up doing gutter cleaning. I said, right now, I know you guys are 20 years old, 21 years old, and think you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Nothing's ever going to happen to you. I've seen a lot of things in this industry. Things happen, no matter who you are, no matter how careful you are, no matter what kind of attention you pay, things can happen. I said, so some of the other things you guys need to start looking at is insurance for yourselves. I said, and those, like, some of those steps like that are some of the big steps that start building credibility when they're going out and talking to homeowners. You know, pricing. Like, one of the biggest things that happens in this industry, and there's times like I start up new services and I go back and forth about what I should be pricing things at. But with them, I sat down and they're like, I said, how did you figure out your first two jobs? Well, we kind of looked at it and we kind of felt them out and felt what we thought they could afford. And that's what we charged them. I'm like, that's a horrible business model, just to let you know. I said, I'm happy you made some money. I said, but that is not going to go ahead and get you where you want to go. And like that's who I am. I'm very honest with that kind of stuff. If it's bad, it's bad. I'm going to tell you it's bad. I'm going to give you a way to make it better. So,
Yeah.
and at the same time, I'm going to tell you it's bad. And that's what I did. It's like what you something like that for gutter cleaning. Literally, it should be a between the lineal foot price you're going to charge for cleaning out a gutter and the height that you've got to go to do it. So, is the difficulty multiply those two together, and there's your fee. So is what it comes down to. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. So is what it comes down to. And that's the way that you go ahead and look at it. You don't look at it at what they can possibly afford. If
Yeah.
you want to go ahead and do that, make sure you're making enough money everywhere else that you can go ahead and give a discount like that whenever you've got that case. Like maybe you're
Sure.
helping out a neighbor, maybe you're helping out an elderly person, and you're like, I really want to be able to go ahead and help them out. You can go ahead and do that when you're making enough money on the other jobs. So, and then it's not a big deal to go ahead and do those pieces. Yeah, those are the things that whenever we sit down and start talking about things, that's what we started talking about is you've got to have a standard process. You've got to have that entity. You've got to have the insurance behind you because the more and more you're doing this, every time you're doing this, it's just starts to compound the challenges you might have. And let's take care of that before it ever becomes a challenge.
And I think that's the commitment levels that you're talking about
Mm-hmm.
because you start commitment's one of those things. It's not just one commitment, right? And I think that gets lost. I think, oh, I made a commitment. Okay, you made one.
Right.
There are 50 or 60 or 100 or 1,000 commitments that you have to make, and then you have to hold true to all of them, not just one or two or pick or choose.
Yep.
And I think that's where the obsession comes in, at least for me, is like I make a commitment, then I'm so obsessed with my commitments that I make that I constantly think about them. And I'm just now, this is just now dawning on me that that's probably the thing that creates the obsession is that you get to a point where you made so many commitments that you have to hold true to all of them. And then that becomes the obsession of how they all work together. But you're right. You got to make a commitment to show up. You got to make a commitment to communicate. You got to make a commitment to pay your bills. You got to make a commitment to paying your employees. You got to make a commitment to, making sure that you have insurance and gas in your vehicle and tools that work and all of these things that go into having a business. Those are all the commitments that you have to make. And the first one's the commitment to yourself that you're going to do the thing. So,
and like those pieces there, and it's one of the big things. Like whenever I look back, I've coached entrepreneurs and business owners for 15, 18 years now. So something in that ballpark. And one of the things that people always ask me is they're like, well, will I be successful in whatever the business is? And like one of the answers the only answer that I can go ahead and give them. So is if you're committed, you're willing to put the work and you're willing to make the sacrifices because that's what it comes down to. So is making sacrifices. If you want a successful business, the challenge is everybody sells the stuff that's on Instagram and TikTok. And it's the fact that you get to make your own schedule and, you're making boatloads of money and driving around in a Lamborghini and living the life and stuff like that. So can that be done? It can. But to make that happen, that looks like a lot of time, effort, discipline, a lot of missing out on other things. Whenever Alice and I had first gotten together, like for the first 10 years that we were together because of the other business with the coaching and training that I was in, along with my construction business, I missed almost every birthday and almost every anniversary. So because of the fact that that's what the commitment was. And that was part of the communication that we had. And it didn't mean we didn't celebrate. They still celebrated, and then I would celebrate whenever I was home. That's what happened though. And that's the thing, whenever you look at it, that's the commitment / obsession part. You're willing to do whatever it takes. And that the challenge is that whatever it takes doesn't have a comma. It's got an exclamation point.
And
it's
that's the sacrifices. It's the sacrifices that we talk about,
Yeah.
You see, everybody sees the billionaires and all this, the Elon Musk and everything. Oh, I love to be Elon. Well, how much sacrifice does he have to make every single day? How much sacrifice does he have to make both with his family and his businesses and his time and all the things that he'd rather be doing other than, worried about SpaceX or trying to find people that are in outer space and figure out a way to bring them home and all those things. It's like there's a lot of sacrifice that goes along with it. And it's good and it's bad, and you have to figure out what's the difference. I feel like sacrificing my time for the benefit and the future of my company and the people that I'm, responsible for is way worth more than any football game or basketball game or anything else. And sometimes I have to make make that choice and commitment between my kids' sports and working, you know, and so it all kind of plays out together. But sacrifice is definitely a big one.
And one of the big things that everybody looks at, and this is the challenging part when you're starting a business, is you're not looking at that person when they started the business and the amount of effort that they had to put in when they started it to get to the point where now you see them having all these things, having the freedom to be able to having more time freedom in their life, be able to do the things that they want to do. So you're looking at your day one compared to their year 10. So
Yeah.
is what it comes down to. And your life is markedly different when you get to year 10. So you've got that ability to be able to go ahead and set those pieces whenever you've committed, whenever you've obsessed in the first part of it, to go ahead and create everything. And you started setting things up and creating systems and processes. So I've been through the trials and the tribulations. And if you've got people that are on your team who are able to handle some of that, and that way you're able to step back and take that time away. Those are all key pieces that happen over time. They don't happen on day one. Remember that piece, especially in today's social media environment.
Yeah.
People, it's so easy to look at it and go, oh yeah, well, realize you're seeing their best days. Very few people actually put the challenging days up and let you know what's really going on. I mean, I'll give you all a
The
little secret.
dark work.
There's at least once a month that I come home and tell Alice that I'm closing up the business. I'm done. So I'm just sick of it. I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to go ahead and take it down to just me and run it as just me.
Yeah.
And that happens only because, and that's always frustration is what it comes down to. And usually it's frustration with me because I don't have something in place the way I want to have it in place so that it runs smoothly.
Yeah.
And that's the part that you realize over time. And it's like, I recognize it now. So whenever that happens, it's like, I go back and I'm like, what do I need to change? What do I need to make different? And it still doesn't mean I'm not going to get upset.
Yeah.
I think you have to have that passion as an entrepreneur. So I don't know how people do it without having that passion.
You can't. You
Mhm.
can't have that passion without having the obsession. And
Right.
without the obsession and the passion, then you won't ever have the end result that you desire. You'll just be lost, you know, which
Exactly.
sadly,
A lot of people do.
millions of people today are just lost. They, you
Mhm.
know, and don't know what career they want to take and everything else. I always like the joke that, you know, it's the 10-year overnight success, you
Mhm. Always.
know. And so, but yeah, I mean, that's what we're talking about. You have to have an interest in something. You got to be committed to it.
Mhm.
And once you've been committed and you make all your commitments, you keep going, then you transition over into being obsessed with it. And now you're trying to tweak it because that's the passion. That's the thing that you created. That's your baby in so many words. Most of
That's
the time when I
literally it.
get frustration, it is always me. I
Yeah.
mean, I say that's other people, but I know it's me that's the wrong one in that piece too. So,
And that comes from many years of perspective
oh
of
yeah,
running down that thing. And you're like, the only thing that's common here is the person that I'm looking at in the mirror, which means that
me.
I've got to be the challenge.
Yeah, I'm definitely that guy.
And it definitely is something that you gain with years of time and perspective on things. And that's one of the reasons why we keep working on ourselves. It's one of the reasons why Nate and I hang out like we do, why we do this, because you've got someone else to bounce off of each other. So you've got someone else to go and look at and go, hey, that's you screwing up. So here's what you
Hmm.
might want to do differently this time. No, it
Yeah,
really wasn't them. And those are the types of things that having people in your life who are willing to tell you that, as opposed to just patting you on the back and telling you it's going to be okay. So, and that's how that's literally, that's one of the things for me that I gauge my true friends. So I'm on the people that'll tell me that I'm being the pain in the butt. I'm the one who has the issue in this. So it's my challenge to resolve, as opposed to just jumping on the bandwagon and go, yeah, I know how hard it is with people nowadays and how, that
yeah,
isn't what it is. So it's how can I be more effective? So when you take responsibility, so that's when things in your life will change no matter what. So, and that's like one of the big things I look at with what we've been talking about today, getting into construction and like coming to work for someone like Nate with his companies. So coming through Concord and going ahead and doing the different class schedules that are in there, the different specialties that are in there, you actually get to find out that's your testing point to get it kind of an interest level. So you can do some of the things and start finding out, all right, is this something that's going to work? Realize they're all going to be, I don't want to say all, but the majority of them are going to be uncomfortable with you when you get started because
yeah,
it's just not something a lot of you have done before. It's working through that piece. You've got to give it enough time to actually get good at whatever the skill is, and then you decide whether this is where you want to continue moving forward at. And I see that too often with people as they run into that little bit of resistance and they leave, and that's when we know you're interested. You weren't committed. So if you look at it that and you're gone that quickly, you were just interested in doing this, and we're okay with that. We understand that
yeah.
people have
Absolutely,
different
we're
paths.
okay with that. because being interested just means you're being exposed,
Mhm.
right? And whether you take it or you don't take it and you move on and you find something else that's more interesting and something that you want to commit to, by all means, that's what we're here to do. We're here to help find these pathways for people to go down. And so,
Yeah. Oh, and that's jump back into whenever I was talking to the youngster, I was talking to a youngster, so 21, 22-year-old. So
yeah,
whenever I was talking to them, they are young compared to me. And I'm so happy that they're getting started now. And that's one of the things I told them. I'm like, I love the fact that you guys are going out and doing this now, as opposed to one of them is actually still going to college while he's doing this. And then
perfect.
Mason, who was one working with me, is all into this as far as the business goes. He's got a job too. So he's doing that hustle,
Yeah,
of going ahead and doing both things. And, I laid out those steps for if you're going to go ahead and get started in something, having a service business like that, like for the gutter cleaning piece that they're doing, they need ladders. So, and after they had done the first couple, they were talking like, yeah, we want to go ahead and get like a pressure washer to be able to go ahead and blow the leaves down the gutter and then clean out the downspout a lot easier and things like that.
yeah,
And what they didn't go out and take the money that they got them from their first jobs and go out and blow it, which is what a lot
nice.
of people go ahead and do. They held on to it. And as when you're first getting started in a business, especially if you've got something else that's taking care of the money that you need to have come in, reinvesting as much of that money back into the business, whether it's in marketing, whether it's in tools, whether it's in training, whether it's getting yourself, a coach and a mentor. So to be able to work with all of those things are going to go ahead and make it easier, make it better, and give you a higher level of success faster by going ahead and doing that. And that's literally what they did. They went out and got into the equipment piece.
So
So they
smart.
went ahead and bought some of the pieces that they need.
Yeah,
The only thing that he told me about briefly via text is that they're getting into now. They want to go ahead and get some equipment for cleaning roofs, which is there's definitely a need for that down here. So
yeah,
especially in
yeah,
Florida, you got a lot of tile roofs and things like that.
yeah,
There's a whole nother set of, and this is why I caution you on, if you're going to go ahead and do that, make sure you've got someone to come and talk that through with.
yeah,
Because every time you go ahead and move in an industry, especially like construction, there's a whole nother set of items so that you want to be aware of about that industry that are different than the one you're in.
yeah.
And for someone who has experience, coming to someone like Nate, coming to someone like me, someone that might be in your area, wherever that is, go and talk to them because they'll give you that perspective and let you know, hey, these are some of the things that you may not have thought of just because you don't know what you don't know yet.
Yeah, the pitfalls.
Yep. And that's what I told him. Like, we need to sit down and have another conversation. I can go ahead and tell you the good and the bad, at least make an informed decision before you start diving into those
Yeah,
pieces. The biggest challenge that happens so often when people get started in a business, they may be doing the service, and then someone asks them, hey, do you do this? Hey, do you do
oh,
that? Hey, do you do this? Then all of a sudden
yeah.
you're attempting to be everything to everybody.
Run
And
down
that's
that
not
road.
necessarily the best route to go, especially because then people don't really know what you do. It's better, like you were talking about, Nate, the guy who's cleaning grills or was talking to you about cleaning grills,
Yeah,
have a very specific niche like that, and then have a bunch of other people you can refer things out to and get a referral fee for going ahead and doing that. I do that all the time. So with
well, one
certain
of the
things like
things that,
that,
yeah,
good, Nate.
anytime I'm talking to somebody early, it's like pick one lane, right?
Yeah.
Pick one thing. They say it all the time, the master of none and the jack of all trades, the master of none, right?
Yep.
That's what you're talking about here. You have to get to a point where you master something before you can add something else on. And mastery that's a whole other conversation. We probably need to do a podcast on mastery because I think that's really an important one. But get into grill cleaning, right? Or get into gutter cleaning, or get into fence staining, or get into
Pressure
lawn
washing
mowing,
driveways or whatever.
power
Right.
washing, right? I started in and mowing lawns, right?
Right.
But you get into one thing and you get that thing down to it and better than anything else. And what I told the young man that was talking about cleaning grills, I said, "Great, you clean grills." And he was talking about, well, should I mow yards too? Well, I said, no, 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 no. You clean grills, right? That's
Mhm.
what you do. And if you can just stick to cleaning grills and book all of your appointments for cleaning grills, you'll have more appointments. The moment that you add in one other service, you've cut your grills in half and you cut your other service in half because you
Mhm.
can't scale or grow. And then the next thing you know, you're lost in amongst the weeds. Stick with one thing.
Yep. And that's like that key that Nate's talking about right there, getting known for that one thing. And when it comes to mastery, we're not going to get too far into this, but one of the general pieces to look at when you're mastering. You become a master of something when you put 10,000 hours into it. So if you're thinking of a normal work week, which a normal work year, so is normally about 2,000 hours a year. So it's a little bit more than that. So, but most people take a couple weeks of vacation in there. So that means 5 years of working before you become a master in whatever that is. And that's a mastering in a lot of different things. We're talking about a business like this. It's the master of cleaning the grills. So like the gentleman Nate was talking to. So it comes into the master of how to run the business, how to go ahead and schedule things, how to go ahead and market. So how to go ahead and take care if you had to hire people, how to hire subcontractors or employees. I mean, there's a lot of different pieces that come into that. Yet until you've gone ahead and run through that piece, there's just so many different things that can happen. And it's one of the biggest pitfalls that I see is that people want to, you want to take it all on. We used to have, whenever I used to work for one of the builders I used to work for down here, one of the big national builders, whenever we would work there, we would all go out and find different subcontractors to come in because we were all looking for new subcontractors that did a good job. And we would always bring in, like, framers were a great one. You'd bring in a framing crew and they would kill it on your first few houses because you're the only houses they're focused on. And they're able to do it really well. They do it quick, they do it clean. So you're happy with the results. Then all of a sudden the other builders in the community start hearing about it and they're like, hey, can I go ahead and get their number? I want to give them a call. Well, unfortunately, subcontractors are just like new business owners when it comes down to that. They get big eyes whenever they see that happen. So actually, all they start thinking is dollar signs is what they start thinking of. I'm going to go ahead and run all these houses in this whole community. I'm going to frame every house in here. The challenge is they don't have the labor to go ahead and do it. So they go running out there. They sign this all on. So then they start splitting the crew up. And then you had a really good crew that worked really well together. That now you're attempting to make some people into lead people who are not lead people. They don't know how to lead others, is what it comes down to. All of a sudden, the work across the company goes down. Their punch out goes up. So as far as that part goes, then their profits go down. So then everybody's holding their what they call retainage, which is the last 10% on them until they've got everything done in it. And all of a sudden they're strung out and can't get anything finished. And nobody's happy. And we're all out looking for the next framer.
Yeah. Same problem. So stick with one thing until mastered before you add any separate service. The other thing I tell people all the time, because I get more than just people in the construction business that I talk to, and a lot of different business owners and entrepreneurs and investors and things of that nature. And I give it's the same speech all the way across the board. It's like, for investors, I say, like, why do you want to learn more than one industry? You learn one industry, you stay in that industry. You don't do crypto and then multifamily and then food service business and wholesale.
The only way you can do that is if you hire an operator who is an expert in that industry.
You got to hire
an actual owner.
You got to hire a different operator for each one of those industries. And then you spend all your time catching up with whatever that
managing the operators,
right? Yeah. It's the same thing with the construction business. Like, you can be a framer, be a framer. Don't be a framer and a roofer, right? If you're gonna be a general contractor, then you're a general contractor. And general contractor takes a long time to be able to master all the other pieces so that you know who's doing what and how to do it. Because if not, then you're losing.
And that's one of the biggest challenges that happens is, like, and Nate talks about, like, on a general contractor, you get guys that used to be framers and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go ahead and be a GC. Do you know anything about plumbing? Do you know anything about HVAC? Do you know anything about scheduling? Do you know anything about paying subs? Do you know anything about talking to the homeowners? So to go ahead and work that, and it's like all of a sudden they're buried, and typically they don't find that out because they all think it's easy. And here's the challenge. When you look at somebody that's been doing something for a long time, it'll typically look really easy because, again, they've got their 10,000 hours in. So in a lot of cases, they've got systems and processes in place. So they've got a team that helps manage things and run things. That makes it look like they've got, everything's easy peasy.
Yeah,
it is. When you've got that kind of time and you put that kind of commitment and you've been obsessed with it for that long to go ahead and create that, it becomes easier.
Yeah.
And that's really what the piece that you look at is, like Nate said, that's one of the big things. If you take anything else away from this, stick with one item, one focus, do one industry and get really good at it. So, and then decide whether you want to add something else. It's the conversation that we all have. I have ideas that come up all the time and people are like, that's a great idea. Why don't you do that? And I'm always like, because I've got enough things that I'm focused on right now that one more thing just means that everything else is going to get, like the example Nate gave earlier, everything else is going to drop a little bit because you can't focus 100% in every area. It's not possible unless you hire an operator to come in and take care of things. Or brought on a partner, which partners are very expensive operators, is what it comes down to whenever you look at things like that.
Well, partners
Because,
is a whole other issue because you got to
yep,
get in that, now you're tied together, right? So that's another podcast
it's
we
a
got to do.
business marriage is what that is.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we need to do one on mastery, one on partners. That's definitely one.
We're just stacking on anything else that any of you who are listening, you're like, I wish you guys would go ahead and talk about this. So about the industry or about business, just let us know. Put it in the comments. So whether you listen to us on Apple or on Apple or on iTunes, or whether you're listening to us on Spotify or any of the other services that go ahead and we publish podcasting on, or whether it's on social media and you saw it promoted there, put it in there. So that's a great thing to do. We would love to hear from you. So, if it's something that fits and we think that it'll be a great fit for the audience, definitely something we'll look into. And go ahead and maybe you'll hear what you want to hear from that. And we might even go ahead and pull you in. So whenever we're doing this, to maybe do a little Q&A of you. So if there's certain questions that you might have, so that'd be a good little piece. I just threw that out there. So Nate's like, where did that come from? That was me.
I'm all on board. That sounds like fun to me.
Yeah. So this is really one of the big things we want to go ahead and look at. This is a great place to get started. Construction gives you that opportunity to get started with very little investment, except for your time. So you get a great chance to learn so many different things in this industry, whether you're working for somebody else, whether you want to go ahead and start your own service business. There's always people out there that want to go ahead and have other people do things for them. And that's something that's very easy to step into as long as you're willing to go through the processes. Find that person who knows how to get you there. It's going to go ahead and save so much on the front end of everything, on the learning side of things. So you want to go ahead and do that. So for everyone who's listening to this, make sure to go ahead and share this with others, make comments. So rate us. We would love to hear that. So I'd love to hear what you're thinking. And we look forward to seeing you or hearing you on our next podcast. So coming up next week.